Israel frequently attacks Iranian targets in Syria, but this airstrike last week now runs the risk of igniting a wider war. That's partly because this was an Iranian diplomatic building, but mostly because 7 high-ranking Iranian officers were killed. Those buried in Tehran included 3 generals from the Quds Force. That's the elite branch of Iran's Revolutionary Guard in charge of overseas operations in support of Hamas and Hezbollah. Israel has killed at least 18 Quds officers in the last few months, and its surviving commanders have demanded a response. These chants of death to Israel are sometimes dismissed as empty threats because Iran stands to lose in any wider war. But yesterday, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, repeated his promise to retaliate.
In
this case, the wicked regime made a mistake. It must be punished, and it will be punished.
In the audience were the 2 men most likely to carry out the Ayatollah's orders. On the left, Brigadier General Amir Hajizadeh, in charge of the Revolutionary Guard's ballistic missiles. And on the right, General Ismail Ghani, the Quds Force commander in charge of Iran's proxy operations in Syria, Iraq and Lebanon.
As of right now, Iran has messaged that everything is on the table. And that strategy that's very much taking place in the public domain is designed to increase tensions, increase anticipation and tension, and keep everyone on high alert.
Last night, President Biden was trying to drown out the drums of war, hosting Prime Minister Kishida of Japan. But when US presidents pivot to Asia, the Middle East often drags them back.
Our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
In February, the president welcomed home 3 American soldiers killed on the Jordanian border in drone strikes by Iranian proxy militias. The US airstrikes which followed stopped further attacks, but who knows for how long. Israel's Prime Minister was today inspecting his own F-15 fighters, perhaps enjoying a crisis which has returned Joe Biden to his corner, and confident that Israel, backed by America, has the ultimate deterrent, overwhelming force.
We are preparing for scenarios of challenges from other areas. We established a simple principle: whoever hurts us, we hurt him. We are preparing to meet the security needs of the state, both in defense and in attack.
What happens next depends on Iran's 84-year-old commander-in-chief, who can surely hear the calls for restraint, but also the fury of his most loyal generals, for whom these losses are personal and cannot go unpunished.
Well, earlier I spoke to Seema Shine. She was head of research and analysis for the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad from 2003 to 2007 and is now head of the Iran program at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv. I started by asking her if she was concerned about Iran's response.
Well, afraid, I'm not afraid, but people are concerned, no question about that, and that's a major subject in Israel. The question of everyone, all my friends are asking me as if I know, are asking me, is it going to happen? And if it's going to happen, where it will happen? And, and will Israel retaliate? Will it be the beginning of a regional escalation? Many, many questions Israelis are asking. We'll see.
Do you know the answers?
2 things. One is that I do believe that probably there will be a retaliation from Iran. I do think Iran and Israel do not want to escalate to a full-scale war. I'm sure about that, about Iran and about Israel, and I think this is a very important, if I am correct, it's an important assumption. And I think there is major concern also in Iran because they don't know how Israel will behave. And I think Iran, if there is something that I can say was very solid in the last years, but also specifically in the last half a year since the war in Gaza, is that Iran didn't want to be involved in a war.
If Iran doesn't want to escalate the war, and if Israel doesn't want to escalate it, why did they launch the airstrike that killed those Revolutionary Guard commanders in Damascus? Because that's a provocation, isn't it?
I'm trying to explain the Israeli logic. The Israelis don't think it's a provocation. They think that what is happening around Israel after the war that Hamas launched on Israel is a provocation. The fact that Hezbollah decided out of the blue to start attacking Israel, the Houthis in Yemen are trying to reach Israel. Fortunately for us, they don't succeed in most of the cases.
Right.
They stopped all ships that are coming.
But even what Hezbollah is doing is low level. I mean, Hezbollah has not gone to full mobilization. If they did, it would certainly be felt in places like Tel Aviv. They haven't done that. Iran has been fairly muted in its rhetoric, considering what's been going on. I just wonder, why would Israel choose this incredibly dangerous, febrile moment in order to do something to Iran that is bound to produce a response?
I think Israel feels, and I completely can understand it, Israel feels that Iran is operating the whole war around Israel and doesn't pay any price. And those people that were killed are the people that are relevant and are responsible for everything that is going around Israel. And that's the reason.
Do you think that Bibi Netanyahu, who's always seen Iran as a fundamental enemy to the existence of Israel, wants to pick a fight with Iran using this particular opportunity now with the Americans and their aircraft carriers parked in the Eastern Mediterranean?
I think there are a lot of people that believe that this might be the case, and I'm sure that in Iran, I know that in Iran there are those who say don't fall into the trap that Netanyahu is putting. I don't think so. I think Netanyahu understands the situation. Israel is involved very deeply in the war in Gaza and in the north and in other places, and I don't think he wants to enlarge any conflict with Iran.
But this would be the perfect opportunity to do so, wouldn't it?
I don't think the Americans want it to happen. I think the Israeli army is in a situation that they would prefer to do it if they have to do it in a better circumstances.
So briefly and finally, Seema, this is a very dangerous moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, and I would recommend all sides to be very constrained and not too much emotional.
But then again, I get back to these attacks in Damascus. That was not constrained, was it, by your government?
Depends where you sit and how you look at the situation. Israelis feel that Iran is doing everything against Israel and doesn't pay any price.
Okay.
And I think this is a very strong feeling in Israel.
Seema Shine, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, we can speak now to Abbas Aslani, who specializes in Iranian foreign policy and is a senior research fellow at the Tehran-based Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. He joins us now from that city. Thank you very much for coming on the program. So you heard what our colleague in Tel Aviv had to say there. Israel doesn't want to pick a fight with Iran. Iran doesn't want to pick a fight with Israel. And yet, Iran has promised retaliation for the killing of those commanders in Damascus. What form will that retaliation finally, when it happens, take, do you think?
Well, I think that the retaliation or the response from Iranian side can constitute two parts. One part which is going on these days, and that is part of a psychological campaign which has been exercised against Israel. Iran wants to somehow shroud Israel with the veil of uncertainty and trepidation in order to put pressure on the regime by the time that it is taking a practical action against Israel. But the second part could come somehow directly or indirectly through the allies of Iran in the region, or it can be the combination of the both. I think by the time that Iran wants to take some time in order to, sometime from now to in future, to conduct a kind of a surprise attack against Israel, So because it is expected to be a kind of surprise attack against the interests of Israel, I think we have no details so far, and they wouldn't disclose how they are going to do that. But it could be, I think, direct and indirect, or a combination, I think, in order to somehow exercise some damage and impose some damage against Israel.
So people are trying to sort of carefully calibrate how many people they kill and where they kill them and when they kill them. But at the end of the day, this is, as we heard just now from Sima Shine, this is a very dangerous moment, isn't it? How afraid are you that this could all slip out of control, that we could end up with the wider conflict that nobody really wants?
You know, this is no secret that neither Iran nor the United States, they have not been seeking a wide, let's say, conflict or in the region. But it seems that the Netanyahu, after facing, you know, different types of crisis internally, including the protests at home, or let's say the differences with the United States, which has become public these days, or losing political support internationally, including its close ally, the US, as well as the Europeans, they wanted to somehow create a crisis outside in order to divert attention.
You think he's trying to export this war to make it bigger?
Yes, this is from the same old, you know, playbook by Netanyahu, which has used this, you know, method for several times in the past. And I think because he is facing a crisis, he wants to resolve that crisis with creating a new crisis. And that's why Iran has been arguing that Israel has been trying to survive through crises at different times, and this is one of those examples.
But if he's trying to do that, then surely it's incumbent on Iran, that apparently doesn't want a broader conflict. You know, the Ayatollahs might lose power if it gets to that. It's incumbent on Iran not to fall into that trap.
You know, Iran is quite in a complicated situation. On the one side, it doesn't seek to expand the conflict in the region, but on the other side, if Iran does not react, it will be a kind of green light to Israelis in order to conduct and carry out further attacks against Iranian interests in the region. So whether to react or not to react, it could be, you know, no reaction could be inviting further attacks. So Iran has no choice but to respond, at least in a specific type or manner, in order to prevent further attacks in future.
Abbas Aslami in Tehran, thank you very much indeed for joining us.